Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always ready to dig into some interesting companies.
Well, today we're looking at Rana Sugars Ltd.
Oh, interesting. I've heard the name, but I don't know a ton about them.
Yeah, I was in the same boat,
Yeah.
honestly, but we've got some reports here, some company info, financial data, the whole nine yards.
All right, let's see what we've got. Should be interesting to break this down.
So goal is uh, what do they do? How are they doing it? And what makes them, tick?
Yeah, classic deep dive. What makes them stand out in the market? I'm in.
Okay, so to start, I mean, Rana Sugars, they're in the sugar business, right?
Right, that's their core, you could say. But they're not just a one-trick pony, which is pretty cool.
Oh, okay. So what else is going on there besides the sugar, I mean?
Well, they've branched out, got their fingers in a few different pies, so to speak. They're also producing ethanol.
Ethanol, interesting.
Yep, and they're in the power generation game, too.
Wow, okay. That's kind of expected, right? From sugar to power plants.
It is, but it's actually a smart move, especially in an industry as, let's face it, as volatile as sugar can be.
Right, so it's all about diversification then, not
Yeah.
putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And they're doing it in a pretty clever way, too. They're actually using byproducts from their sugar production to make it all happen.
Okay, so like what kind of byproducts?
So we're talking about things like molasses, which, comes from sugar refining. And then there's this stuff called bagasse.
Bagasse, what in the world is that?
So bagasse is kind of like, well, imagine you squeeze all the juice out of sugar cane. What's left over, that fibrous kind of dry stuff, that's bagasse.
Oh, so like the leftovers, like sugarcane pulp or something.
Yeah, exactly. It used to be considered waste, but Rana Sugars, they're using it to fuel their power plants and even to make ethanol.
Whoa, that's pretty amazing, turning trash into treasure.
Right. It's a pretty impressive closed loop system. They're minimizing waste, creating new revenue streams, and getting some sustainability cred along the way.
Sustainability, that's huge these days.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that ethanol production.
Sure.
What's the big deal about ethanol in India right now?
Well, the government's been pushing for this big ethanol blending program,
Yeah.
trying to mix more ethanol into gasoline, all that.
Oh, right, to reduce reliance on fossil fuels.
Yeah.
I've heard about that.
Exactly. It's all about cleaner energy, reducing emissions, that whole thing. And they've set some pretty ambitious goals. I think they're aiming for 20% ethanol in gasoline by like 2025 or something.
Wow, that's a pretty aggressive target.
It is, but it creates a really solid market for companies like Rana Sugar. Suddenly, their ethanol is in high demand. They're not just making fuel, they're contributing to a national initiative.
That's a good PR move too, right?
Yeah,
Aligning yourself with a national priority.
for sure. It can't hurt.
Okay, so they've got the sugar, the ethanol, the power generation, all this diversification going on. But how are they actually doing financially?
Good question. Let's take a look at what we've got.
All right, so their stock is, let me see, it's trading around 20.11 right now. Market cap is 3.09 billion.
Okay, decent sized company then. Not tiny, not massive.
Right. Revenue, 16 billion.
Yeah.
But then their net income is 143.18 million.
Interesting. Revenue's strong, but the net income's a bit slimmer than you might expect.
Yeah, well, what's that telling us?
Well, it could point to some pressure on their margins. Maybe their costs are up, or the sugar market's just being tricky.
Right, because it is a pretty tough market from what I've heard.
Oh, absolutely. It's competitive, prices fluctuate. It's not easy street for sure.
So they're holding their own, but maybe not raking it in.
Yeah, something like that. But their market cap's stable, revenue's consistent, so it's not all doom and gloom. Plus, there's this thing called the PE ratio, which can be pretty telling.
Okay, and for the non-financial folks out there, remind me, what's the PE ratio again?
Right, so the PE ratio, it's like how much are investors willing to pay for each rupee of a company's earnings? So for Rana Sugars, it's 21.60, meaning investors are willing to shell out 21.60 for every euro of Rana Sugars earnings.
So is that good?
Yeah.
Bad? What does that even mean?
Well, it's not sky high, which would mean crazy hype, but it's not super low either, which would signal pessimism. It's kind of a moderate level of confidence, I'd say.
Okay, so investors aren't running for the hills, but they're not exactly throwing money at them either.
Right. It's a bit of a wait and see situation, I guess.
Okay, so big picture, what are like the main challenges Rana Sugars is up against? We talked about the tough sugar market. Anything else?
Well, yeah, the sugar market's a big one. The price of sugarcane itself, that's their main raw material, that can fluctuate like crazy. And a lot of that depends on government regulations, which who knows what'll happen there.
Right, that's always a wild card.
Totally. Then you've got weather, a bad monsoon season. That could really hurt their sugarcane yields, mess with their whole production.
That's true. They're at the mercy of the elements there.
Yep. And then you can't forget the global sugar trends, right? International prices, demand, all that can swing wildly, and that affects Rana Sugars too.
So it's a real balancing act. They got to keep an eye on government policies, global markets, even the weather.
Exactly. It's not easy being in the sugar business, even when you've diversified like Rana Sugars has.
So to wrap this up, it sounds like Rana Sugars is doing some really interesting things. They're diversifying, focusing on sustainability. They're part of this big push for ethanol in India.
Yeah, they're definitely a company to watch, for sure.
But they've also got their work cut out for them, right?
Yeah,
It's a tough market, lots of challenges to navigate.
absolutely. And that kind of leads to a question for everyone listening, something to ponder.
Oh, okay, hit us with it.
Well, with India pushing so hard for renewable energy and the global energy landscape changing so fast, how do you think a company like Rana Sugars will adapt and thrive? That's the big question.
Man, that's a good one. And I'm going to leave our listeners with that thought. Keep that in mind as
Right.
you learn more about Rana Sugars, do your own digging, all that.
Yeah. Always good to keep exploring, see what you uncover.
And on that note, we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Until then,
Bye, everyone.
see ya.